Americans hold an informal belief that if you dig a hole straight down and keep digging, eventually you would go straight through the earth and come up in China. Though it sounds plausible, and this belief has even been used in a Hollywood film, The China Syndrome, this fact is actually 100% myth. For if you do the math and calculate the real antipode to North America, the numbers would put you in an entirely different location, way out in the stormy South Indian Ocean. But for the average American, there's little to get excited about out here. Empty, cold, and wet are perhaps the three best reasons why China makes a better myth. Take a closer look, however, and things get a bit more interesting. Scattered across this massive body of water are a few outcrops of land, the largest of which is an island named Kerguelen. Remote, rare, and second in distance only to the moon, for some hams in North America at least, this spot is just about as exciting as DXing can get. Durban, South Africa's sun-drenched playground on the Indian Ocean and the largest port in the Southern Hemisphere. It's March of 2005, and this bustling city is the starting point for the second Microlight Penguins DXpedition, Destination Kerguelen. This trip has been planned to closely follow the paradigm set during the 2002 trip to South Georgia and South Sandwich. Low power, vertical antennas, and minimal publicity. Another similarity is the choice of transportation, a key element in any Antarctic regional expedition. Though it took considerably more time and expense to reposition her halfway around the world from her home port in New Zealand, the experienced and reliable Braveheart was the logical choice. These low-power, low-profile DXpeditions are designed to keep costs down and logistical problems to a minimum, while at the same time increase the fun factor for both ends of the pileup. To save even more costs, most of the team's antennas were designed and built here in South Africa by Bernie ZS4TX, and almost everything else radio-related was carried in by air. Generators, rope, and other ground hardware were already available on board the ship from previous DXpeditions. But getting to the end of the Earth comes at a heavy price no matter how lean you slice it. And without funding from the Northern California DX Foundation, the team's only sponsor, this DXpedition would have never left the dock.
G'day, mate.
Ground support, including accommodations and air-to-sea transfers, were provided by the local amateur radio community in Durban, which showed out in full force the night before departure at a specially arranged send-off meeting for the team.
We started this trip in August of last year. Left from New Zealand, pulled into Durban on the 27th of February, so we had a really great trip getting across there, following seas the whole way. This would be the longest underway period of time that we've had during a DX trip. It's 10 days to get to Kerguelen. It's averaging about 9 knots.
One of the reasons that we left from Durban, South Africa is that we had winds and currents both behind the boat, which made for a much smoother voyage. I wouldn't say smooth, but smoother is probably the best way to describe it. And once the expedition is over, we're going to continue to proceed in an easterly direction, heading up to Perth, Australia, which once again has following seas. So it's a total of 20 or 21 days on the boat.
I'm not a very good sailor myself. I don't take medications, and so the first few days at sea I was pretty sick. But after a while I got my sea legs and the trip became enjoyable.
Well, it's my first time on the Braveheart, first time on this kind of expedition. Never been on a boat before, really, apart from crossing the English Channel. Normally I'm the first one to go, sort of feel really sick, but we got a little patch behind the ear and then some tablets and I feel good, no problem.
Being stuck on a boat, there's two aspects. One is the boredom. When you're on and you're going, there's not much to do. You know, you look at the water and you look at the birds and you talk with the other people, and there's just not a whole heck of a lot to do. The other part is the physical sickness that people get, the seasickness. We have all sorts of patches and medicines that we use for that.
I spend a lot of time actually up on the upper deck. That way I can concentrate and focus on the horizon and trying to keep my wits about me up there. There's also space. We've got our radio set up for email and some maritime mobile work. And right now what I'm trying to do is get our logging program lined up for the actual expedition.
Every day is more or less the same as the previous day. It's very easy to lose the track of time. Normally I try to stick to the routine of getting up at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, having some cereal or toast. Then we watch a movie for a couple of hours. Then it's lunchtime. Then we have our afternoon session at the movies. Then we have a dinner. And then a night movie. So we are surviving.
We couldn't put as much fuel on board as we wanted to in Durban, which has actually turned out to be not such a bad thing, I don't think. The extra fuel we would have put on would have been on deck, and we've been beam on to the Southern Ocean so far, so having another 10 tonne of fuel on deck would have made us roll around that much more. Our burn rates have been about 10.5 litres per nautical mile, so looking at burning about 25,000 litres to get to Kerguelen. We really enjoy the DX trips. They get to take us to places that we wouldn't normally go, and no one else in their right mind wants to go.
We're here! We're here, mates. Here's what we came for. Here's what we spent those 10 tortuous days waiting to see. It's going to be a good sunrise out there. Not quite rosy-fingered dawn, but it's getting a bit of rose on it.
I think it's cold out there. The thermometer's not working, but it's got the feeling of about maybe +1, +2. 13 days of traveling, 10 at sea, and we finally made it. Desolation Island, what a reward. It's going to be cool, but it's going to be fun.
Marion Dufresne, well, it's great to see that ship again. I hope we can go on board and fire up those engines. It's been 8 years, almost 3 months since I last set foot on that ship.
Recevez-vous à vous? Les Braveheart de Disquaire, je vous reçois très bien, 5 sur 5. Donc voilà, bah, écoutez, heureux de vous accueillir sur Kerguelen, et puis je peux vous accueillir sur le quai, si vous comptez être là dans combien de temps?
Oui, donc on laisse le bateau ici à l'encre, et puis on vient avec le Zodiac, c'est en ordre comme ça à vous?
Affirmatif, comme ça, on fait comme ça, on voit les formalités à régler ensemble, et puis après je vous laisserai partir sur Port Jeanne d'Arc à vous.
Ah mais c'est super, merci beaucoup. Donc on sera chez vous dans un quart d'heure, à vous.
Parfait, très bien. Bah, écoutez, pour nous il est 8h20, donc à 8h35, je serai sur le quai pour vous accueillir.
Impeccable monsieur, merci infiniment et à tout à l'heure.
A tout de suite, merci.
Viendra probablement passer vous voir.
First stop is the French base at Port-au-Français for landing formalities and instructions from the base director. This base is occupied year-round by a staff of about 100 people, most of whom work in scientific research or satellite tracking for the French space program. Today is the busiest day of the year here at Kerguelen. Their supply ship will be departing this evening and not returning again until September, and there's a large volume of cargo to be exchanged before sunset.
When I first saw this place, Kerguelen, it was back in '97. Actually, we were on our way back from Heard Island. And at that time, when we pulled into Port-au-Français, it was absolutely stunning. And I never even imagined in my wildest dream I'd be able to get back here one day. But to actually come to Kerguelen and experience the land, the sea, the beautiful scenery, and to be able to operate radio is it was just an opportunity of a lifetime.
Wow, this is just incredible to be back here. A little over 8 years ago, 9V1YC and W3WL and I were here, and I think we all thought that maybe we'd be back here one day, but to actually be here again and see it is just, it's almost overwhelming. What a beautiful place.
We're at this interesting place here called Kerguelen, trying to figure out how we're going to set everything up. It's amazing how the weather changes in no time. When we came in, it was nice and calm and sunny, and then the wind kicked up. But it looks good.
Our location is in a place called Port Jeanne d'Arc, which is somewhat inland from the larger community of Port-au-France. I was on the initial shore party, and one of the functions we had to do was try and scope things out, figure out how we were going to position the antennas, where we're going to position the stations in the house. And I guess there's some good and bad here. The house was extremely well sealed, which is very nice from an insulation standpoint. The building is very, very sound. However, there were no immediate locations we could find to bring coaxes through. So we actually brought the cables out through the foundation.
There's a nice big operating table here. We could fit at least 2 here. The idea is to run the balun cable down a guy line that we're going to put roughly at the middle of the antenna. So this kind of runs down along the guy line. We'll tie wrap it on or tape it or twist it around.
The antenna complement is fundamentally vertical antennas. Starting with 160, we have a Battle Creek Special. We also have a Battle Creek clone that was manufactured by N0TT. On the higher bands, 40 and 30, we've got quarter wave elevated radial verticals made by ZS4TX. And on the remaining bands, 20, 15, 10, 17, 12, etc., we're using half wave SVDA vertical antennas, again made by ZS4TX. All the antennas are fed with RG213 coax, and we've managed to get some pretty good lengths out there. Separations between some of the antennas exceeds probably 1,000 or 1,200 feet, so we've got some pretty reasonable isolation, which allows us to operate on adjacent bands. We're in a rather isolated part of the world, as you You can probably imagine. It's good in the sense that not very many people have been here, not a whole lot of ham radio's taken place. However, on the downside, we were 11 days out in the boat from Durban, South Africa, and once the expedition is over, we're looking forward to 10 days heading into Perth, Australia, which is not really the most pleasant thing.
Located 1,200 miles north of Antarctica and midway between Africa and Australia, Kerguelen is easily the largest single island in the Southern Ocean's subantarctic belt, with an area of over 7,000 square kilometers. Mountains and deep fjords cut across the interior, a legacy of glaciers which once covered most of the island, but have now shrunk to less than 15%. Owned by France and classified as one of their 4 southern and Antarctic territories, this archipelago consists of one main island surrounded by 300 smaller ones. A few hundred miles to the southeast is her nearest neighbor, Heard Island, which sits on top of the same geologic ridge. Kerguelen is unique in that it straddles the Antarctic convergence, that sharp dividing line separating cold polar waters from warmer temperate ones. This oceanographic mixing zone not only attracts abundant wildlife, it also produces some of the most dynamic weather patterns seen anywhere on Earth. Such is the price for having 1 foot in Antarctica's door.
Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean, listening 194 to 204. K9JF 59. Thank you, 59. Thank you, Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean. Norway 3 Quebec 5 and 9. Norway 3 Quebec. Pennsylvania, good job. NN3Q clear. Thanks, Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean, 194 to 204.
A pileup is a living organism. It breathes and it moves.
Hotel Quebec, Mexico. Hotel Quebec, Mexico 59. Roger, you're also 59 from K9 Hotel Quebec, Mexico. K9 HQM, thank you.
It's kind of like, if you're really good at it, you can kind of sense where it's moving next.
K8ND 5 and 9. Roger, thank you, 5 and 9. Thank you.
It's kind of like waves in the ocean. And every now and then, if you can get in synchronization with those waves and get right in the right places at the right time, it's like magic. It's absolutely magic.
W4TO 5 and 9.
Logic, Hotel, you're 5-9 from Whiskey 4, Tango Oscar.
Thank you. KNWD 5-9.
Yes, you're 5-9 also. Good signal.
Thank you. WP4 Yankee Delta Lima 5 and 9.
Roger, Whiskey Bravo 4 Yankee Delta Lima 5-9 Tennessee, QSL.
Yep, WP4 YDL. Thank you. Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean 194 to 204. Again. Number Fox 4 Alpha 5 and 9. Thank you. And 8 Zulu X-ray 5-9. Yeah, November 8 Zulu X-ray 5-9. 5-9,
thank you.
Thank you.
Whiskey 7 Victor, Japan.
W7 VJ 5 and 9.
Hello, thanks, 5-9.
Thank you.
It's like a symphony to sit there and listen to him play the pilot. Beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Mike Alpha Fox, W9MAF,
59MAF, thank you.
The house has been completely refurbished. It's in excellent condition. There are 4 or 5 main rooms here. There's a kitchen, there's sleeping areas, there's actually a bathroom, a toilet, a shower even. Not that we've used it or had it functional, but it is here. There is a number of provisions in the kitchen that are set up for emergency purposes for those that may need them who are stranded or whatever. Anyway, we've managed to set up the CW stations in one of the rooms, separated by a sleeping room in the middle, and the SSB stations in another. There's a good shelter outside where we have the generators positioned. They're high and dry, out of the weather. Immediately outside the window, we can see the remnants of the old Norwegian whaling station. It's rather weathered and not in very good condition, obviously. It's deteriorating very quickly, but certainly very, very interesting to look at. There's a couple of buildings on the outside as well. It looks like the French are setting up a small museum. They've managed to salvage a few pieces of machinery and have got them reconditioned sitting inside.
WD-40, this thing would clean right up and we could probably get it in action again pretty quick. Looks like it's got a pretty hefty motor on it there, or piston, maybe steam operated even. Not really sure. I don't know, the more I learn about whales, the more you just find out we really had our way with whales all over the world. It's a wonder there's any of them left.
Constructed by the experts of the whaling industry, the Norwegians, this station first opened in 1908 and took the name Jeanne d'Arc from the first ship to arrive. The whale processing plant only operated for a few years before it was put out of business by the newer and more profitable floating ship factories. The same company changed to processing elephant seal oil for a few seasons, but that too failed to turn much of a profit. And by 1929, Port Jeanne d'Arc was closed down for good and abandoned. Film footage taken in the late 1940s by a visiting Australian Antarctic research ship shows the buildings in a gradual state of decay with little attempt at preservation. Interestingly, it was the regular Australian visits to this site which forced France to reclaim full sovereignty over the islands and open up a permanent base here in 1950.
This is Pete the Penguin, and he's our mascot on the Penguin expeditions. He's been to South Sandwich and South Georgia. He's also been to Heard Island, and now he's notched up Kerguelen. So he's probably the most traveled penguin in the world. I can't guarantee that because there's nothing to keep the records on traveled penguins, and probably penguins travel all over the South Ocean, the Indian Ocean and what have you, but there's very, very few penguins that have ever been to North America, especially to Atlanta, Georgia, and even more especially to Roswell.
One of the amazing things about this expedition that I just did not expect at all is how much activity there is on 12 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters, when the bands seem dead most of the time.
There's so many calls and you don't want to slight anybody, and it's just...
All we had to do was get on when the bands were open, which was quite frequently, and there'd be major pileups every time.
Like this guy right here, he's probably been trying for hours, and how do you pick him out from all the other ones? You don't know.
So I guess one of the things that I'd like to encourage people to do is get on the band and try to use these higher frequencies even when the sunspot cycle is low.
The secret of this is to be really fast, and then you can talk to everybody and nobody gets upset. But I'm not that fast. What do you do in a case like this? Spin the knob.
You're the most popular guy in ham radio at this moment, bar none.
I think Wes is awesome.
Well, this time I'm going to spin the knob down because all these guys are kind of going up the band.
So now I'm going to fool them and go back down. I'm going to start listening below my transmit.
I think we accomplished some major things here also on 160 and 80. Those bands are, of course, better now than they would be in high sunspot cycles, but still in all, keep on the bands, keep them active, and it's just amazing what you can talk to.
What's really interesting is they all know I shifted down. It just takes just a second, and everybody moves down. See? Already.
Well, we're having some difficulty with interference when 10 meter loads up. It seems to interfere with pretty much everything. So the plan here is to relocate the 10 up to the top of the hill, which is a maximum distance away, as determined by the amount of coax we have. And we're going to interchange it with one of the 15s. So it's an effort to try and minimize the interference and maybe maximize a few QSOs out of 10 meters, which otherwise seems to perform fairly well. One of the fortunate things about the timing is the fact that we have good propagation on all the frequency bands, all the way from 10 right down to 160. It's Easter, it's the end of March. 160 and 80 are perhaps a little bit on the noisy side, a little noisier than they might have been in January or February. But on the good side, we've got great propagation on 15, 12, and 10 meters.
FT5XO listening 28512.
Charlie Tango 1 X-ray Kilo.
Big signal, Charlie Tango 1 X-ray Kilo 59.
Okay, Charlie Tango 1 X-ray Kilo.
12 meters is sitting somewhere, I think, around 5,000 Qs, and 10 meters is probably around 4,000, with 1 week gone.
Charlie Tango 1 Echo Lima Fox.
Charlie Tango 1 Echo Lima Foxtrot 59.
Okay, 57.
73, thanks for the 5 and 7, listening 512.
Germany 4, X-ray Ocean Peter, Germany 4, X-ray Papa.
Well, my role on this trip is different than the role on the last trip. The last trip, shoveling on foam, that's what I did. This trip, I'd mentioned the possibility of going on a DXpedition to some 6 meter friends, or nuts, you might say. And these folks started talking about moon bounce, EME, and this presented several technical difficulties. This presented a lot of things that have really never been done. Moon bounce has never been done from FT5. So I consulted with the group to find out if this would be acceptable, because 6 meters EME, that's not your typical DXpedition. And they've been hugely supportive of this EME business. So I put together the station, which is an FT897, that's the little radio, the computer, a rig blaster, and then Mike Stahl, K6MYC, was nice enough to loan us a 41-foot boomed 6 meter antenna that came in a little tiny package. We put that thing together and put it up, and of course it crashed the first day, a guy broke, and then the group rallied. The group put this thing back together, and we put her back up and put her on the air.
Wes, does this look square? I mean, like this and the elements and stuff, what do you think?
This here looks like this sags properly.
Yeah, those pile-ups, man.
Well, listen to that, he has the jargon down. Yes,
You'll
sir.
find that these here are half a wavelength
That's what I said.
for the 6 meter. Yeah, I know a bit about moon bouncing. 10 days in a leaky boat with you fellas would be...
When we made our first cue, our first contact, there was yelling and high fives, and it was truly amazing. I mean, hardened CW ops are going nuts watching this thing. Since that time, we've made 5 and perhaps 6 cues, which is huge. I mean, here we are out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the South Indian Ocean, and we're bouncing signals off the moon. When you think about it, that's just amazing. It's really a lot of fun.
Seems like we abused this key a little bit, so I'm going to try to fix it. Right now I'm trying to figure out which is dit, which is da. Not having much luck. But after I get this key fixed, I might go try a little bit of RTTY. Tried it earlier this morning, but there was nothing going on. So what else is going on? Andrew's still running 40. Wow, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I gave up at
a nice fit of 54.
Yeah, okay. And we had a little snow last night, a little bit of blizzard this morning. Actually had precipitation static, but now the sun's out. It's a beautiful day. Of course, that'll change in another 10 minutes, so that's the weather on Kerguelen.
Coming down here in the fall in Kerguelen, the weather started out being really quite warm, almost short sleeve weather, and in the last 2 days we've had 2 or 3 inches of snow. What do they say? If you don't like the weather, wait a few minutes and it'll be completely different. And it seems like every 10 or 15 minutes you can have sun, you can have snow, you can have rain, you can have 40-mile-an-hour winds, and you can have a perfectly peaceful calm.
When we arrived, it was summer. Then we had a winter. Then the spring came. Then the autumn. It's a very volatile place, actually. When you go in the morning, you don't know what will happen in the evening. When you go for a walk or something like that, we don't go too far because we may lose our way back home.
I almost forgot what Kerguelen was all about. We had a nice couple of days. And it's nice and calm and sunny, and then this again.
Every day is different too. The views are different. Whenever the sun comes out, the place changes. The sun goes on, it's different. We have a snow, we have a wind. Unbelievable.
I'm looking outside right now. The weather is kind of fierce. It's blowing wind, and just puts a big, deep chill in the body. This is totally different from a few days ago when we were setting up the antennas, and actually we were really fortunate to get here when we did, because the weather was quite good, probably around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and we were able to get the antennas up quite quickly. The next couple of days after that, the winds kicked up to maybe 40 knots, and trying to get these antennas up now in this weather would be really difficult, so we were lucky. Well, the snowstorm started hitting a couple of days ago, and we noticed every time it snowed, the noise on the bands would kick up to S9, 40 over 9, and we were changing the stations around yesterday, and during the station change, we reconnected one of the coaxes to the radio and got a big arc and took out the power supply and a TS50.
The voltage must have been enormous because, I don't know, he probably dragged the arc for 2-3 centimeters. That's at least 2-3 kV.
Just made us really aware of the super high voltages that are collecting on the antennas just from these short snowstorms that are hitting.
Thanks, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar 950 to 960.
Watching good operating here and getting ready to change over to 80 and 160 to see if we can hit the west coast at their sunrise. We've been spending a lot of time on 160 and 80, especially you know, at our sunsets and sunrises here.
Thanks, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar 950 to 960.
Trying to maximize that and keeping it going during the night.
Oscar Hotel 2 Bravo Papa, Uniform 59.
We've got two good antennas out there for the bands, and hopefully the effort will show.
This is very good. I mean, where else can you sit here and listen to excellent ops run, 12 meters, working the States from Kerguelen. Another guy, Robert here is working Ready the World. You got penguins and all kinds of other stuff out there, among good friends. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this.
Giving 80 meters a try on our sunset, North American West Coast sunrise. Just getting started, trying to find a frequency, and hopefully some guys will answer us.
What's good about this trip when you're in a team situation is that after 2-3 hours, when you're really flat out, there's the next person to take the seat, hot seat, and continue the pile-up. So you don't reach boiling point. I mean, every pile-up can make you really frustrated at the end of the day, especially when propagation goes down, they stop hearing you, and people, you know, tip over each other and so on. But the pile-up is never ending. That's the big difference from the other ones. I think we'll never satisfy all the hams who are in need of this country. We probably will have to stay a year or more to do that. It's sort of like a bottomless pit, you know, you can't work them all. The only times we stop running pile-ups is when the Mother Nature will close the band and we have to go to the next one. They're just enormous. I mean, you can listen to the pile-up 5 up, 10 up, 20 up, 30 up. Basically, you can listen crossband and they will be there. It's fantastic.
This expedition has been, on one hand, what I expected. Huge pile-ups, great demand, and from a radio point of view, very, very satisfying. This style of the expedition is completely different to previous expeditions that I've done. D68C was very different in the sense that operator schedules were very, very strict. We had certain rules to follow on operating style. This is a lot more laid back, a lot different. If there's a free radio, somebody jumps on it. Like both for different reasons, no general preference.
I have a few friends back home which aren't really making it through the pile-ups. I was wondering if I could maybe commandeer the radio for about an hour and run a few of these guys on a sked. I'm going to call them on the phone and see if maybe they can come to the frequency and I can sort of spoon feed those guys. Would that be okay? That's what I want to do.
During the night we had a hurricane force wind, and that caused this mast to buckle just above the lower guy ring for some reason. So we're going to take it down, we're going to repair it, get back on the air. It's modeled after the Battle Creek Special and designed to work on 3 bands. I got some information from the guys there in Battle Creek and I went from there. Now this one was tuned for 75 and the other Battle Creek, the original, is tuned for 80 CW. So we can operate either band without mistuning any of the antennas. Both are set up for 160 meters, however.
This is called a crump. When an element like that does that, it's called crumping. We have a crump.
Let's take off the good part first. Yeah, we can recover from this 100% just by taking the short length off where the crimp is at, and then there's an adjustment tube in here that we can make up the length difference. So no effect at all, actually. It was just this one little section right here from the tape out to where it actually broke. So we easily compensated by adding the built-in length on here, and that brings it into resonance on all the bands. So not a problem.
Claiming to have discovered the Antarctic continent, a French captain by the name of Yves de Kerguelen-Tourmerac first sighted these islands in February 1772. Without even landing or just taking a closer look, he returned to France to boast of his amazing new discovery, full of agricultural potential and mineral wealth. With this impressive claim, the French monarch immediately funded a second expedition for Kerguelen to take possession and colonize La France Australe. When he returned here the following year, however, it became obvious to the expedition that this was a far cry from being the new continent he had described. The unfortunate Captain Kerguelen was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his costly exaggerations. The famous Captain James Cook was the next explorer to show up in 1776. He wrote in his log that Desolation Island might have made a more appropriate choice, despite France's well-documented claims under Kerguelen's name. Not long after Cook's visit, the predictable flow of American sealers descended down here only to slaughter every seal they could find. And by the mid-1800s, once Kerguelen was cleaned out, the sealers used this as a staging base for quick runs down to nearby Heard Island. The Desolation Island Cook described in his logs is actually quite the opposite and remarkably full of life. Lush green slopes, waterfalls, and the usual cast of Antarctic wildlife are just about everywhere on Kerguelen. Human-introduced species, descendants of ship stowaways from 200 years ago, such as rats, rabbits, and cats, can also be found in abundance.
NW70, 5 and 9. 5 and 9, Montana, thank you. USL, Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean 228. Kilo Alpha, Kilo 5 and 9. Kilo Echo 5 Kilo, thank you. Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean, listening 228. W5 Italy Zulu 59. Thank you.
7 Mexico Tango.
The 7 Mike Tango 59.
7 Mexico Tango, November Whiskey 7 Mexico Tango 59. Thank you.
NW7MT, thank you. Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean 228.
Kilo 17, Kilo 1 Radio.
K7KR 59.
QSL 59, Arizona, thank you.
Thank you. Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean. Kilo Victor 59.
November 0, Kilo Victor, also 59.
And 0KB, thank you. Fox Tango 5 X-ray Ocean 228. Mike Lima 5 and 9.
We have the ship anchored offshore. It's maybe 1,500 feet offshore, and we've been able to go back and forth with the Zodiacs. The crew of the ship have been very, very good. We're making 4 to 5 trips a day, so most of us are spending the nights on the ship in the bunk. It's reasonably comfortable. I think it's a lot better than being in a tent, as we were in some previous expeditions. We're here with a total of 18 people. There are 12 official team members, and there are 6 crew members with the ship. And so far we've seen excellent camaraderie. Things are working very, very well. Everybody's working as a team.
It's photo day at Fox Tango 5 X-ray Oscar.
Let's get the case. I went to Kerguelen and all I got was this stinking t-shirt.
Let's pack up now and party the rest of the time, huh?
Party! They're not going to be into alphabetical order.
Setting things right.
This one's backwards too, hang on.
They're all backwards on this side.
Standing in the wrong place, my friend.
I'm not.
Just give us a second.
That's my flag. You won't have that one.
I don't want it, mate. Bernie, are you going to smile for this?
Of course.
How do we look out there?
And the crew of the Braveheart, they are working with us in every respect.
Hello.
I like Gary.
Not you again.
They participate in the installation of the antennas and work with us all the problems through generators, not to mention the fact that they feed us and take care of us. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people.
What do you want to know? Propagation or QSOs?
Pilot.
Well, I know about the moonbeam thing.
Originally named Genkai, Braveheart was built in 1981 for the Japanese government. Her all-steel hull is just under 120 feet long, about 20 feet wide, and draws about 13 feet of water. She has a single main engine, a big, reliable 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel built by Niigata Engineering in Japan. This engine can develop over 1,200 horsepower, although the crew never really run it that hard. Electricity powers almost all of Braveheart's systems, from engine hydraulics to the furnace, and even the water maker that keeps the fresh water flowing through the taps. In fact, AC power is so important that there are 2 identical 3-phase generators on board, which alternate in service every few weeks.
Well, we took a look at the stats, and yesterday we got hurt a little bit. I think it was partially the storms that continually moved through and blew up a radio and really disturbed our operations. About every, I guess, 30 minutes we had another major snowstorm, snow squall, and surprisingly enough they were full of electricity. We actually had arcs on the PL259s between the center conductor and the braid. So we learned not to try to disconnect antennas in the middle of it because that's what blew up one of the radios. But it did require us to shut down quite often during the night. So as you can see here, unfortunately, Saturday, the weekend, was our lowest day so far. And we had a propagation issue too. I feel kind of naked not having the internet to look at the K-index, but I'm sure the K-index was up Saturday because it was just a tough day. But I'm not sure we want to point this out, but we're 72% CW. We're trying to make up the sideband deficit. You sideband guys, we care about you. And we've been working some RTTY, which doesn't appear in the pie chart, but I think we're over 600 Qs on RTTY now, so we're trying to hit all the modes.
Thank you, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar up 5. Kilo Hotel 6 something. Kilo Hotel 6 Yankee, Yankee 59.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar up 5.
Sugar Papa to Papa, Italy, Toronto.
Sugar Papa 2 Papa India Tango 59.
59-70, good luck.
Thank you, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar up 5.
9 Mike 2 Fox Bravo, 9 Mexico 2 Fox Bravo.
9 Mexico 2 Fox Bravo 59.
Yeah, thank you, 59, thanks very much.
Thanks, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar up 5. Japan November 4 Alpha Sierra Alpha 59.
59, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fox Tango 5 X-ray, Oscar up 5.
Juliet Alpha 1, Golf Bravo Charlie.
Juliet Alpha 1 Golf Bravo Charlie 59. Thank you, QRZ.
Good boys, we got her. Nice and control. Okay, come on down. Who's up behind you?
Well, this trip for me was something I considered a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I had to take 6 weeks off of work and go to a very far place on the planet, taking a long boat ride on the ocean on a fairly small boat, and living on an island that really doesn't have very much in terms of facilities. So it was both very exciting to me and also I was a little bit anxious about the trip.
We made a lot of Qs with this beast. 40 meter quarter wave, elevated radial antenna. What do you make, 11, 12,000? Something like that.
I really enjoy being able to go on these expeditions. To me, amateur radio is a catalyst. It's a means to go out and have some adventures that you can't get any other way. And in the meantime, you're being able to enjoy the amateur radio hobby, but also you're making new friends. You're going to see parts of the world that are just very, very extreme in the sense that nobody else goes there. It's too hard to get to them.
Can I stay another year, please?
We'll
Just another year.
Contact the Marion Friends for you. I'm sure they'll stop by.
I'll keep your sleeping bag.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Well, you know, why do I want to go on a DXpedition? You know, I mean, why do you want to do this? I mean, there's lots of different reasons people give, but down deep, why do you do this? Yeah, sure, it's a break from work and it's a change in the routine, but I've tried to think about this a lot. What it comes down to is adventure. Everybody craves adventure, and that's what we're doing here.
You know, we're very lucky to get a chance to come to the far reaches of the earth, and I consider this a long way away, something very different. I feel extremely lucky that I was able to come here, that I was invited, and that I was able to get away.
I'm looking forward to getting home, really. It's been around about 5.5 weeks away from home, away from family, away from friends, away from work. And I guess I miss that lifestyle. It's going to be good to get home. However, this is a beautiful area of the world, lovely ship, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Has this trip changed my life? I'm not sure yet. We'll have to find out. But all the problems from the work problems, family problems, that's so far away, you just can't think about it, actually. We are sort of detached. We're on a different planet, surrounding everything. This is like one of those movies about the places you hear about and you never get to see. So it's quite an experience, I have to say that.
And the things we see and do and experience on a trip like this are incomparable. You cannot even imagine what happens on these expeditions. Besides all the cues, there's the adventure.
Will I be back here? I don't know, probably never. So that's also a worrying thing. You try to grasp everything, try to remember all the views so you can take it with you, so you don't forget about it. It's quite a heavy load we have to take with us.
I miss my family, I miss my friends back at home, but to do something like this is worth it to do at least once in a lifetime.
Thank you. This is Whiskey Tango Fox Tango 5 X-Ray Ocean.
What am I supposed to say? I missed it. Okay, cut.
Don't record this.
Drinking on the job, we never do that.
No.
Good morning, James.
Roger that.
Don't point that at me to make me feel really self-conscious.
Magic.
Jeff, K1ZM, I did work you on 160.
I can't say it as deep as Woody Rouge.
Thanks, Jimmy.
This is Whiskey Tango 5 X-Ray Ocean. Wow, geez, I keep getting it mixed up. Fox Tango 5 X-Ray Ocean.
That's enough to stop you being a vegetarian, James.
No, I'm laughing because I can see what people can't see from behind the camera.
Okay, you can stop. Yeah.
It's red tape. He's got something to say. Fantastic. He told me to say it. You might want to cut that.
Fox Tango 5XO, Fox Tango 5XO, out there in radio land, you could be doing this. This could be, I'm transmitting to the world, waiting for somebody to call back. You can do this, even by yourself. Just go somewhere, iota anywhere. This is what it's all about. Fox Tango 5XO, Fox Tango 5XO, listening 512.